Hi, it's me, Jacqueline. Welcome to my channel. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and join me at Patreon. Link in the description. California. The flight to California landed at about 8 in the morning. Mike had an appointment with the doctor at 1. So, Mike and Masumi checked into a very nice hotel that was just down the street from the hospital. Mike was nervous and paced the room a little. At about 12:30, they walked to the hospital and found Dr. Lee and Berlin's office. There were 3 other people in the waiting room, and Mike checked in with the receptionist. He was handed the usual clipboard with a long questionnaire and other paperwork on it. It took him almost a half an hour to fill things out. It was around 1:30 when a nurse came to the door and called him. He and Masumi followed the nurse to an examination room, where the nurse took the usual vital information. Dr. Berlin didn't walk in until almost 2. The doctor was strikingly beautiful. She introduced herself, sat, and opened a file folder. She looked at Mike, showing him pictures of himself and Miyuki, and said, "These are really the same person?" "Yes. You really do a fantastic transformation. I would have never guessed that they were the same person. It's mostly Masumi's work. You do very nice work." Masumi just smiled. Dr. Berlin continued, "She does know what is planned and has agreed to it?" "Yes. We've had long talks about it, and she's behind this completely." "Good. Sometimes the wife is the last to know and goes off the deep end." The doctor got up and examined Mike's face very carefully. She then had him remove his shirt and examined his chest. Sitting back down, she became completely businesslike. She said, "In looking at my notes, the pictures, and now this isn't going to be hard. Your facial bone structure is very feminine, as is your body. How, with the breast implants, will go somewhat small. Most Japanese girls are small-breasted, and we want you to look natural. With your face, your forehead is somewhat feminine, but we'll modify it a little. At the same time, we'll reposition your brow, give you a nice arch, and bring your hairline closer to your brow. We'll also change your eyes so that they are more like what I see in your pictures. In fact, I can probably take them a step or 2 further. I also want to work on your nose a little, but not much. Your chin doesn't need any work at all. It's very feminine already. I think I also want to do a little cheek augmentation. I don't think we need to do any body contouring. I like what I'm seeing. And I couldn't tell from the pictures, but you have a small Adam's apple, and we won't need to do anything with that. One thing I would like to do while you are here is a laser skin resurfacing of your face and neck. The one I use will remove 99.9% of any beard growth that you have and really make your skin nice and smooth. We will need wait about a week after your surgery before we do that. Also, I think a little lip augmentation wouldn't hurt. I'm using a procedure that lasts about 5 years. I'm also glad to see that your natural hair is thick and long. And you haven't started with male pattern baldness. I have a beautician that works with me. She will dye your hair black, add some hair extensions, and style it for your face. She is really good. You won't be able to tell the extensions from your own hair when she is done. I did a little workup on the computer to give us an idea as to what the finished work would look like. The doctor handed Mike a computer picture. When Masumi saw it, she smiled. It was a before and after headshot. From what they saw, if it turned out anything like this computer-generated picture, it would be wonderful. She then handed them another picture that showed a full frontal and full side views, before and after. Mike looked at Masumi, and she said, "It looks like I'm going to have a very pretty girlfriend." "Doctor," Mike said, "you have hit us with a lot of information. The department appears to be impressed with your work, and from what I've seen, so am I. So, I'll leave the details to you. I'm sure that you will do a great job." "Thank you. Since you are scheduled for surgery tomorrow morning at 6, you need to go check into the hospital by 6 tonight. I suggest that you go to a restaurant for dinner. The hospital food isn't that great. You'll need to stay in the hospital for 2 nights after the surgery. And I'll check on you every day. Then you'll need to come back here a couple of times. We'll do the laser work here and remove the sutures and staples. Your hair will be done at the beauty dop after hours. You will find that there will be swelling and bruising. How much will be determined by your body, and how long it lasts will depend on how quick you heal. Any questions? Like I said, you've hit us with a lot of information. I know I'll have questions, but right now I can't think of any. Here's a number you can call. They can answer most things for you. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you, doctor, Mike and Masumi said together. That afternoon, they walked hand in hand for a while and finally found a nice restaurant. After enjoying a leisurely early dinner, they walked, hand in hand, back to the hospital. Mike was in his room by 7, and it was a private room, so Masumi could spend the night. She just sat with him all night. He was nervous, and she spent most of the night just talking about various things, trying to take his mind off of tomorrow. The next morning, at 5, a nurse came and gave Mike a shot to relax him. Then at 5:30, an orderly with a gurney showed up to take him to surgery. Masumi gave him a big kiss and whispered in his ear, "I love you so much. Everything will be just fine. See you a little later, girlfriend." "I love you too, girlfriend." Masumi went and sat in the surgical waiting room. A few hours later, Dr. Berlin walked in and sat next to her. She explained that everything had gone perfectly, just like they had planned, and that she could see Mike as soon as he was back in his room, which would be another hour or so. Masumi sat with Mike in his room. He, or she, was very groggy. She woke up and fell back asleep a number of times. But by late afternoon, she was fully awake and talkative. There was some pain, so she buzzed for the nurse and was given a pain shot. When Dr. Berlin came in, she told the girls that everything went better than planned and that she didn't have to do as much to her forehead as she thought. In fact, if Miyuki felt well enough by tomorrow afternoon, she could check out of the hospital and rest at the hotel. With a wink, the doctor said, "The food is much better there." It didn't take long for the swelling to start to go down, and she hadn't bruised that much. The doctor was extremely happy with her progress and released her to go home. During the final exam with the doctor, they talked about some other aspects of Miyuki's change. Dr. Berlin said, "There are a couple of things that we didn't do that you may want to look into. I would suggest that you have the same laser treatment that we did to your face, done to the rest of your body." "I didn't want to do it here. Your body has had enough trauma for a while. You really don't have that much body hair, so it shouldn't take long. I was on the swim team in high school, and we used to shave our bodies before a meet. But a girlfriend of one of the team members suggested that we do body waxes. And that's what I've done ever since." "Good. But you'll have to let it grow in for a while before you have it done. And I'll give you the name of a dermatologist in Washington that uses the same method I do. He's good and will want to do it over a number of sessions, and that's good. Now, the other thing is your skin coloring. Right now your coloring isn't that of a Japanese. There are a number of things that you can do. A careful tanning will darken it some, but may still not look right. There are some spray-on colorings that you can get and some permanent skin dyes." Masumi added, "We found a spray-on skin coloring that is really good. But every time she showers, we have to reapply it. I'd continue to use that for a while. But this same dermatologist knows about skin dyes that will last a much longer time. These are new and not available or even known to the general medical community. I think you'll like the results." "Thank you, doctor. You've done a great job." "I'm very happy." "So am I," Masumi added. The next day they were scheduled to fly back to Miyuki's mom's and spend a few days before going back to Washington. That morning, Miyuki was just getting out of the shower and was closely looking at her new face and body in a mirror. She saw Masumi standing in the door, looking at her. She turned and looked at her and said, "Do you like the new me?" With a big smile, she answered, "No. I love the new you." As they walked through the airport, heads turned to watch two pretty girls. The plane landed at about 4 in the afternoon, and Masumi and Miyuki were met by Miyuki's sister, Ruth. Ruth recognized Masumi right away, but had to look twice at Miyuki. She gave both of them big hugs, and in hugging Miyuki, and said, "Mike, your hair it's so nice, and you are gorgeous." "It's not Mike anymore, Ruthie. It's Miyuki full-time now. And the hair has some extensions until mine grows out." "Is Mom ever going to be surprised? You don't think it's too much for her, do you?" "No. I think she'll love it. Remember the times we had our girls' nights out? Well, she loved those, and still talks about them. Don't be surprised if she suggests we go out while you're here." And, to be honest, she admitted to me that she loves you as a girl. Miyuki just smiled, remembering those nights. If his dad had only known. As they pulled into the Giffords' driveway, Ruth said, "Masumi, come with me." Mike. "Sorry. Miyuki, stay here until I call for you. I don't want to miss the look on Mom's face the first time she sees you." As Ruth and Masumi were walking up to the back door, they saw Mom looking out the window, a little puzzled. As they walked in the door, Mrs. Gifford said, "Where's Mike?" Masumi gave Mrs. Gifford a big hug, and Ruth said, "Hi, Mom. Do we ever have a surprise for you? Sit down and close your eyes." "You girls," Mrs. Gifford said, as she sat and covered her eyes. Ruth went to the door and waved for Miyuki to come in. Miyuki walked in and stood in front of her mom. Ruth said, "Okay, Mom, open your eyes." Mrs. Gifford opened her eyes and just stared. "Hi, Mom," Miyuki said. "Mike?" "Not any longer, Mom. It's Miyuki." "Yes, yes." "Miyuki." "Mom, are you all right?" "Yes. It's just seeing you looking so pretty." "No, you were pretty when we went out, but now you're gorgeous." "I can't believe what I'm seeing." "Sit down and tell me all about it." "Ruth, please make us some tea." "Sure, Mom." "Where are the twins?" Ruth asked. "They're at the park with your brother." Miyuki said, "Paul is watching the twins?" "Yes." He wasn't sure about them at first, but within a couple of days he was having a lot of fun with them. "They'll be back in an hour or so if it doesn't start raining." "So, this is the new you?" "My new daughter." "Yes." "The new me." "Your new daughter." "If you'll have me?" "Yes, I'll have you." "I love you either way. It's just going to take a little getting used to." "So, tell me all about it." Miyuki and Masumi went into the details of their stay in California and the surgery that Miyuki had. They explained that the doctor had been so good that there was very little bruising and that most of the swelling had already gone down. Just as they were finishing, Paul and the twins walked in the door. The twins saw their mother and, like all children who haven't seen their mother for a while, ran to her, yelling, "Mommy, Mommy." Paul stopped in his tracks when he saw Miyuki. Mrs. Gifford said, "Paul, it's not polite to stare. Say hello to your sister and Masumi." "Hi, Paul," Miyuki said in a sexy voice. He continued to stare. "Paul, are you all right?" "I've never seen you this lost for words," Masumi added with a grin. "Yeah, I'm okay. But, Mike, is that you?" "No. I'm Miyuki." "Yeah. Right. Miyuki. God, you're pretty." "Thank you, Paul," Miyuki said, kissing Paul on the cheek. At that point the twins ran to Miyuki, saying, "Aunt Me. Aunt Me." Miyuki knelt down and gave them big hugs. Ruth said, "They don't even seem to miss Mike. They know when Miyuki is around. Mike isn't. And when Mike is." "Miyuki isn't," Masumi answered. There was a knock at the front door and Mrs. Gifford said, "Ruth, see who that is." Ruth walked to the front door and opened it. It was Mr. and Mrs. Gordon and their daughter Jackie. They had hosted Masumi during her junior year in high school. "Hello, Ruth." Jackie was driving by and said that she saw Masumi walk in the house. "I hope we aren't being too forward by stopping by, but we just had to come over and say hello." "Oh no, Mrs. Gordon, you're always welcome," Ruth said, and then called to her mom, "Mom, it's Mr. and Mrs. Gordon and Jackie." "Oh, good. Invite them in," Mrs. Gifford replied. Miyuki looked at her mom and said, "Mom, don't worry, honey. We'll just introduce you as a friend of Masumi's." Just then Ruth and the Gordons walked into the kitchen. Masumi gave them both a big hug and, thinking quickly, said, "This my friend, Miyuki. She's here for a few weeks visiting while Mike is out of the country. So I brought her here to meet everyone." Turning to Miyuki, she said, "Miyuki, this is Mr. and Mrs. Gordon and Jackie. I've told you a lot about them. Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access."